Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakahak Barakathum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who ruled and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'll be profiling this article from Politico.com titled, I Think Things Are Going to Be Bad, Really Bad. The U.S. military debates possible deployment on U.S. soil under Trump. Trump has said he wants to use active duty U.S. troops to quell protests and round up immigrants. Will the military comply? And hey, this is just another signs of the times that we truly are living in the last days. We're at the cusp of Jacob's trouble and all hell breaking loose. Trump could very well be that cruel Lord in Isaiah chapter 19 that's going to come down harshly, on you U.S. citizens, especially you Israelites or you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And as I said, Trump has said he wants to use active duty U.S. troops to quell protests and round up immigrants. And we know through the scriptures that there will be civil unrest in the United States of America. This is Isaiah chapter 19, verse 2. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. And this is talking about the spiritual Egyptians as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8. The United States of America, with these Americans, specifically these American Edomites. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight, not talk, fight, protest, and everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Civil unrest, civil war, perfect reason to deploy military forces to quell the chaos on the streets. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 4. And the Egyptians, or the Americans, will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord, Yahweh of hosts. And like I just said, Trump could very well be that cruel Lord that's going to come down with that hammer. And Apostle Tahar is deemed 2025 to be the hopeful year of the deliverance of the elect of the nation of Israel and the destruction of Esau, Edom. And Abaratazah, this is that year. But before the deliverance comes, the destruction, the chaos, Jacob's trouble has to come. And it's called Jacob's trouble for a reason, because while all these nations are going to be in trouble, the wicked of our people, you 2/3 in the United States of America, are going to be straight in the crosshairs. And Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi is going to use his sword, the wicked, as pursuant to Psalms 17, verse 13. The wicked also being Esau, Edom, Malachi 1, verse 4, Job 9, verse 24, to do a lot of that slaying on you wicked Israelites. This is Ezekiel chapter 21. I'm going to start at verse 9. Son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith Yahweh, say, a sword is sharpened and also furbished. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? And as we see, 2025 has started off with a literal bang, and it's just intensifying. So it would behoove you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans out there, the children of Israel, to be getting your minds right and not being this mirthful, I want things to get better, I'm waiting to pop bottles on the weekend spirit, because those days are over. It contemneth the rod of my son as every tree, and he hath given it to be furbished that it may be handled. This sword is sharpened, and it is furbished to give it into the hand of the slayer, the wicked, which is thy sword, Esau, Edom. Cry and howl, son of man, for it shall be upon my people. It shall be upon all the princes of Israel. Terrors by reason of the sword shall be upon my people. Smite therefore upon thy thigh. Straight to the point. Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi is getting ready to bring down that sword on the wicked of his people and, just wicked people in general, especially in the United States of America. And he's mainly going to use, the wicked, who is his sword, Esau, Edom, to do so. And as we're about to see in that article, hey, Trump, perfectly fits the bill for that cruel Lord that shoots first and asks questions later. The last time an American president deployed the U.S. military domestically under the Insurrection Act during the deadly Los Angeles riots of 1992, Douglas Ollivant was there. Ollivant, then a young Army first lieutenant, says things went fairly smoothly because it was somebody else, the cops, doing the head cracking to restore order, not his 7th Infantry Division. He and his troops didn't have to detain or shoot at anyone. There was real sensitivity about keeping federal troops away from the front lines, said Ollivant, who was ordered in by President George H.W. Bush as rioters in Central South L.A. set fire to buildings, assaulted police and bystanders, pelted cars with rocks, and smashed store windows in the aftermath of the videotaped police beating of Rodney King, a so-called black Israelite motorist. They tried to keep us in support roles, backing up the police. By the end of 6 days of rioting, 63 people were dead and 2,383 injured, though reportedly none at the hands of the military. But some in the U.S. military fear next time could be different. According to nearly a dozen retired officers and current military lawyers, as well as scholars who teach at West Point and Annapolis, an intense, if quiet, debate is underway inside the U.S. military community about what orders it would be obliged to obey if President-elect Donald Trump decides to follow through on his previous warnings that he might deploy troops against what he deems domestic threats, including political enemies, dissenters, and immigrants, such as Egyptians fighting against Egyptians, brother against brother, city against city, kingdom against kingdom. On November 18th, 2 weeks after the selection, Trump confirmed he plans to declare a national emergency and use the military for the mass deportations of illegal immigrants. One fear is that domestic deployment of active duty troops could lead to bloodshed, given that the regular military is mainly trained to shoot at and delete foreign enemies. The only way to prevent that is establishing clear rules of engagement for domestic deployments that outline how much force troops can use, especially considering constitutional restraints protecting U.S. citizens and residents against what kinds of people in what kinds of situations. And establishing those new rules would require a lot more training in the view of many in the military community. I'm going to jump around a little bit. In an interview, Kuval, who is a retired Army Lieutenant General who commanded the 7th Infantry Division in 1992 in what he called Joint Task Force LA, said he was careful to avoid lethal force in Los Angeles by emphasizing to his soldiers they were now deployed in the civilian world. He ordered gun chambers to remain empty except in self-defense, banned all automatic weapons, and required bayonets to remain on soldiers' belts. But Kuval added that he set those rules at his own discretion. Even then, Kuval said he faced some recalcitrance, especially from U.S. Marine battalions under his command that sought to keep M16, machine guns, the M16's an assault rifle, on their armored personnel carriers. In one reported case, a Marine unit asked by LA police for cover misunderstood the police term for standing by and fired some 200 rounds at a house occupied by a family. Fortunately, no one was injured. And how much you want to bet it was an Edomite, a so-called white Marine, who had no qualms with firing those 200 rounds into a house with, more than likely a so-called black or Israelite family in there. These Edomites have that perpetual hatred towards you. And it's a well-known fact that, a lot of Edomites in the military or former military are in these militia groups and these neo-Nazi groups. And a lot of those skinheads and neo-Nazis go to the military to get that training. So, when shit goes down, hey, they're ready for it. Trump has repeatedly said he might use the military to suppress a domestic protest or to raid a sanctuary city to purge it of undocumented immigrants, or possibly defend the southern border. Some in the military community say they are especially disturbed by the prospect that troops might be used to serve Trump's political ends. In 1992, Kuval said he had no direct orders from Bush other than to deploy to restore peace. On his own volition, he said he announced upon landing in LA at a news conference, "This is not martial law. The reason we're here is to create a safe and secure environment so you can go back to normal." Kuval said he believes that statement had a calming effect. But 28 years later, with the police killing of another Israelite, George Floyd, sparked sporadically violent protests nationwide. Then President Trump openly considered using firepower on the demonstrators, according to his former defense secretary, Mark Esper. Trump asked, "Can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something?" Hey, that cruel Lord. Esper wrote in his 2022 memoir, A Sacred Trust. At another point, Trump urged his Joint Chiefs Chair, General Mark Milley, to beat the fuck out of the protesters and crack skulls. And he tweeted that when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Esper wrote that he had to walk Trump back from such ideas, and the president didn't pursue them. But some involved in the current debate say they are worried Trump would not be as restrained this time. He is filling his Pentagon and national security team with fierce loyalists. The concern is not just in how much force might be used, but also whether troops would be regularly deployed to advance the new administration's political interests. Soldiers are trained predominantly to fight, delete, and win wars, says Brian Vandermark, a Naval Academy historian and author of the 2024 book Kent State, An American Tragedy. Local police and state police are far better trained to deal with the psychology of crowds. And, we see how these, police get down, with you jakes. So how much more, military, whether domestic or foreign, because lest we forget, there will be, NATO and UN troops patrolling the streets, as well as foreign actors like the Chinese, the Russians, which, they've been flooding across the borders due to, them being wide open. And then we've got these private military like Blackwater, which is Academy now, you name it. Local police and state police are far better trained to deal with the psychology of crowds, which can become inherently unpredictable, impulsive, and irrational. If you're not well trained to cope, your reaction might be inadequate and turn to force. He adds that at the Naval Academy, as well as West Point, my impression is this is an issue that is being thought about and worried about a lot, but is not openly discussed. Some lawyers and experts in military law say a great deal of confusion persists, even among serving officers, over how the military should behave, especially if Trump invokes the Insurrection Act and calls up troops to crush domestic protests or round up millions of undocumented immigrants. In most cases, there is little that officers and enlisted personnel can do but obey such presidential orders, even if they oppose them ethically or face dismissal or court-martial. But as Kuval puts it bluntly, you don't always follow dumb orders. The basic reality is that the Insurrection Act gives the president dangerously broad discretion to use the military as a domestic police force, says Joseph Noon, an expert at the Brennan Center for Justice. It's an extraordinarily broad law that has no meaningful criteria in it for determining when it's appropriate for the president to deploy the military domestically. Nothing in the text of the Insurrection Act says the president must cite insurrection, rebellion, or domestic violence to justify deployment. The language is so vague that Trump could potentially claim only that he perceives a conspiracy. That's it with this article. You get the point. But hey, 2025 and things continue to heat up exponentially. Let's get back to these precepts. This is 2 Esdras chapter 15 in the Apocrypha. I'm going to start at verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another. And that goes into one race fighting against another, political warfare with liberals versus conservatives, class warfare with the rich versus the poor, the average citizen going against those in the government, etc., etc. Egyptians fighting against Egyptians, and swords in their hands. The modern day sword in America is that gun. Verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. And sedition means conduct or speech inciting open rebellion against a ruling authority or monarch. And we can see as the economic situation continues to deteriorate out here in the United States of America, that more and more citizens are, putting out their grievances towards the handling of the situation by the government. And eventually it's going to get to the point to where these Americans can't take it anymore, and they're going to take to the streets, and it's going to get bloody. And a lot of people they have in their crosshairs are those in the government, because you're the most visible face that they can put blame on to why the situation's bad out here. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. And your modern day kings and princes are, those in the government, mayors, governors, senators, the president, which with this recent presidential selection, you've got the country damn near split 50-50 down the middle, as well as, those that uphold the government, like the military or the police. When the chips are down in society and it's, chaos on the streets, people aren't going to regard a suit and tie, a badge, or a uniform. And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Everybody's going to be getting it how they live, anything they can do for themselves or their loved ones to survive. And what are we just reading all throughout that article? Trump has no problems with using the Insurrection Act to deploy the military as a domestic police force on the streets of America to quell protests and unrest. And like he said during his first presidency, can't you just shoot them in the leg or something? Hey, crack skulls, fuck them up. And lest we forget, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. What does that sound like? A state of martial law due to civil unrest. Hey, as well as what? Lockdowns due to a health emergency out here, which, that's still in the offing. The list goes on and on for all the different black swan events that could collapse society and bring the chaos and necessitate the need for lethal force being used. But regardless how it plays out, we know according to biblical prophecy, it will play out. And like I've been saying throughout the video, it's called Jacob's trouble for a reason. Because while, these heathens are going to be going into the blender, hey, you Israelites are going to be in the crosshairs. Now I'm going to close it out in 2nd Esdras chapter 16. I'll start at verse 70. For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. And these elites' main target are those Israelites that know they're Israelites. Hey, especially the men of the Lord prophesying out there. But hey, whether you're a righteous Israelite, a wicked Israelite, or you're just a regular Israelite out here who doesn't even acknowledge being an Israelite, Esau is going to come down in great wrath on our entire nation. Verse 71, they shall be like madmen, foreign or domestic military, mercenaries, hey, even these robots out here, these drones, what have you. Lest we forget, Elon Musk is a high member in Trump's administration. They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Again, what does that sound like? Anarchy in a state of martial law, with doors getting kicked in, houses getting looted, people getting thrown onto military vehicles and hauled off to detention centers for processing. But that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, all hell is about to break loose. But hey, what comes after the hell, hey, is the salvation. So we should be doing everything we can to stay in the good graces of our power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, so he can shield us from the wicked, his sword, which is getting ready to unsheath that sword, that it may glitter and make that sword slaughter. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next time, Shalom.